Time is running out to avoid a strike at Canada's two largest rail companies. If no deal is reached by midnight, both networks at CN Rail and CPKC are headed for a work stoppage. Good afternoon. A possible rail strike could make things messy for some GTA commuters. If
a deal is not reached, Metrolinx says train service on the Milton line and the Hamilton GO would be temporarily suspended. CTV's Rahim Ladani is live in Mississauga this afternoon to bring us some reaction to this pending strike. Rahim.
Michelle and Nathan, good afternoon. Here at Cooksville GO, when we spoke with many commuters this morning, some of them weren't even aware that tomorrow their GO train might not show up, while others say it would be a significant inconvenience and also an added cost. It is a typical morning commute at Cooksville GO station. But these West End GO train riders are concerned how they'll get downtown tomorrow when their train may be canceled.
I'll have to request for working from home because this is the only way I can commute, and it's not affordable to, catch a cab because the work is on a daily basis.
My commute downtown would go from 30 to 40 minutes to about an hour and a half, and I would have to either wake up early or just show up late at work.
Canada's two main rail operators remain at a contract standstill. Workers are threatening to walk off the job, while the companies say they'll be locked out come Thursday if no deal is reached. And that is leaving thousands of commuters without a ride. Metrolinx uses rail traffic services provided by Canadian Pacific Kansas City, meaning if there is a strike, GO train service on the Milton line and the Hamilton GO will be suspended.
I won't meet my requirements to come into office 3 days a week.
Because we only have one car, and then my wife works in Mississauga, we live in Mississauga, so she needs to drop me off at Kipling. She'll be 40 minutes drive, I feel.
Via Rail is also preparing for the potential work stoppage. It is currently working with CPKC to maintain access to a 1 kilometer section of CPKC tracks in Smiths Falls and plans to continue the regular operation of its Ottawa-Toronto services. However, Via Rail would lose access to CPKC tracks on which it operates the Sudbury White River services and would unfortunately have to suspend operations on this route without alternative transportation until the work stoppage is resolved.
It's certainly not just getting grains and other commodities out of Canada. It affects local transportation networks. It certainly affects employers' ability to get their staff to work on time,
potentially leading to devastating consequences of the North American economy. A few moments ago, we did receive an update from Via Rail saying they have now secured the Smiths Falls tracks. That means that the Ottawa to Toronto route would still be secured with normal operations even if there is a strike. Meanwhile, Metrolinx says all other GO lines and the Up Express would not be affected by a strike. Reporting live, I'm Rahim Ladani. Nathan, I'll send it back to you.
Thank you, Rahim. And coming up, we'll have more on the wider impact of the potential railway strike as the midnight deadline looms. That's a little bit later in the newscast.
In other developing news, Metrolinx has confirmed that it is planning to expropriate more than 24 residential properties along Pape Avenue. This is between Riverdale and Langley Avenues. The transit agency says it's requiring homeowners and renters to give up their residences because of Ontario line construction. It says experts have advised the homes will be vulnerable to potential structural impacts during tunneling. Metrolinx says it's discussing options with residents, including the possibility of moving back into the homes after construction.
Toronto police are announcing 4 arrests stemming from tow truck-related crimes.
3 of those arrested are teenagers. CTV's John Woodward is live at Toronto Police Headquarters to bring us the details. John.
Michelle, the police say these teens were shooting and in one case murdering for hire. That's the allegation from the Toronto police chief and his deputies, who say that the teens were arrested for a shooting spree and they were paid to do this by other people allegedly profiting off a lucrative tow industry. It all comes back to the tow truck turf wars that have been plaguing the city for several years, that we've seen 43 tow truck related shootings just this year. That's 1 in every 7 shootings across the whole city. And that includes the murder of 28-year-old Sulakshan Selvasingham last month. Police say that was one shooting among a spree of 11 for a 15 and 16-year-old from Oshawa and Stouffville, respectively. On top of that, a 17-year-old was charged with discharging a firearm with intent to wound. Again, they're alleging he was working with someone else. In that case, they say that person was 33-year-old Yamal Saeed Waiz, who was charged with conspiracy to commit an indictable offense.
There have been 2 homicides related to this dispute and several people injured.
The motive behind using youths is likely because of the consequences they faced would be significantly different. It's also because they're able to entice them with smaller amounts of money.
In 77. And what is surprising here is the police officers say they don't believe the teens were on any particular side of a turf war. They were going on from multiple instructions and purely doing it for the money that can come in spades with any tow that's taken by these people. The province is trying to take the money out of this operation with new rules that kicked in July 1st. Reporting live, I'm John Woodward. Back to you.
All right, thank you, John. OPP say they recovered a number of stolen vehicles in a traffic stop on the 401 with the help of Peel Police. OPP shared these photos of a tractor-trailer stopped in the eastbound lanes in Cobourg on Monday. They say Peel Police requested assistance to stop the tractor-trailer. 3 stolen vehicles were recovered from the truck. A 64-year-old driver from Mississauga was arrested and is facing multiple charges, including driving while under suspension.
One person has been injured following a collision in the area of Jane and Weston. Police say 3 vehicles were involved in this crash, which happened shortly before 4 p.m. One person was taken to hospital with minor injuries. Police say another person was arrested there at the scene, while a third person took off. So far, there's been no word on potential charges or the circumstances leading up to this crash.
A woman's facing charges and another woman is on the run after an online meetup allegedly ended with the man drugged and robbed of thousands of dollars. 24-year-old Katie Doyle is facing several charges, including sexual assault. Police say the victim contacted the suspects on leolist.com and arranged to meet with them in person last Friday near Dundas and University. During the meeting, police say the victim was given a pill which caused them to lose consciousness. Police have also released an image of the second suspect, identified as 25-year-old Alexandra Molino. Police say when the victim was unconscious, their credit and debit cards were taken and used, racking up charges of roughly $20,000. Police are asking anyone who recognizes the woman in the photo to contact police. Investigators believe more people may have been impacted.
Police say they recovered an assault rifle from a vehicle which struck a streetcar in Regent Park over the weekend. The crash happened near Gerrard and Parliament Streets on Sunday afternoon. Police say a Mercedes attempted to escape a traffic stop, then hit a streetcar and another vehicle. 4 people ran from the vehicle on foot, with 3 later taken into custody. Investigators say a Type 97 assault rifle was found in the Mercedes. Police are still searching for a 4th suspect, and they're asking anyone with information to come forward.
The province is moving ahead with plans to close several safe consumption sites, including 5 here in Toronto. The Ford government plans to ban drug consumption sites within 200 meters of schools and childcare centres. That'll lead to the closure of 10 across Ontario, including 1 on Queen Street, where Carolina Mukarat, an innocent bystander, was killed by a stray bullet last summer. Health Minister Sylvia Jones says the site can opt to convert into a new type of hub focused on recovery with medical and mental health care, job support, and shelter.
You know, continuing to just enable people to use drugs is not a pathway to treatment. And I believe that our government is offering a solution to our municipal partners who, I will say, have been asking for many, many months to have pathways into treatment, to have pathways so that our neighborhoods don't become just a place for people to use drugs.
Advocates say getting rid of the safe haven of supervised consumption sites will result in more people using drugs in public locations, and reduced access to clean needles will lead to more cases of HIV and hepatitis C.
More news in a moment, but first we take a live look outside on this Wednesday, and you'll notice it definitely could be warmer, but we have another glorious day of blue sky, sunshine, and Jess, if you're doing any work outside, maybe you're playing some sports, I mean, these are ideal conditions because it isn't too hot. It really depends on what you like in the summer.
We have kind of that early season cool down. We're not done with summer just yet, so we do warm up just in time for the weekend, but you're totally right. We are feeling that coolness in the air thanks to that northwesterly wind still holding pretty firm. We're relatively clear though in the GTA. That's more just clutter on the map there. The bulk of the rain really is focused in eastern Ontario as we get throughout the day today. Again, wind direction has so much to do with this cool down we're feeling. We're looking at winds sustained just under 30 kilometers an hour, but those gusts just around 45. So it is fresh out there. But again, if you're working outside or maybe you are planning to spend some time outdoors, it's kind of that happy medium where you're not too hot and you're not cold. We're sitting kind of in the upper teens, low 20s, and that's where we stay as we kind of make our way into that midpoint of our day, and then we're just holding on to a ton of sunshine thanks to high pressure being the dominant system. We have a hint of a humidex over towards Pearson, but overall we're sitting comfortably between 20 and about 21. Coming up, I'll have a full look at your long-range forecast and break down when the more traditional summertime heat is set to return. But right now, I'll send things back over to Michelle.
Thank you, Jess. Police in multiple cities across Canada are responding to bomb threats that were sent to Jewish organizations, synagogues, and some hospitals this morning. B'nai B'rith Canada says more than 100 Jewish institutions received an email at 5 a.m. threatening explosions. Ottawa police say they are on site at several hospitals in the capital.
The Canadian government is providing $5.7 million for Ukrainians to meet their basic needs. The funding will go to Save the Children Canada, International Medical Corps UK, and the UN Humanitarian Service. On the battlefield, Ukrainian forces are continuing their incursion into Russia's Kursk region. It has raised morale back home, but has opened up another front in a fight where Ukrainian forces were already stretched. Meanwhile, Russia says Moscow came under attack on one of the largest attacks yet by Ukrainian drones. It says all of the weapons were shot down before reaching the capital.
At the Vatican, Pope Francis renewed his call for peace around the world at his weekly general audience. The pontiff asked Christians to remember those who are suffering in Ukraine, Myanmar, and South Sudan. The Pope also urged people to think of other countries that are embroiled in war.
In Chicago, former U.S. President Barack Obama took center stage at the Democratic Convention last night. Obama did not hold back in going after Republican challenger Donald Trump.
We do not need 4 more years of bluster and bumbling and chaos. We have seen that movie before, and we all know that the sequel is usually worse. America's ready for a new chapter. America's ready for a better story. We are ready for a President, Kamala Harris.
Vice presidential nominee Tim Walz and former President Bill Clinton will headline the third night of the convention this evening. Harris will officially accept her party's nomination for president tomorrow night.
Returning to our top story, the looming railway strike across Canada. This morning, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau said it is up to the two rail companies and the union to settle their differences at the bargaining table.
My message is very straightforward. It is in the best interest of both sides to continue doing the hard work at the table to find a negotiated resolution. Millions of Canadians, of workers, of farmers, of businesses right across the country are counting on both sides to do the work and get to a resolution.
Commuters are preparing for the fallout as the midnight deadline looms for an unprecedented and potentially devastating strike at Canada's two biggest rail companies. For more on this, we're joined by CTV's Scott Hurst. Scott, what's the latest? Any movement today on ending this potential rail strike?
Good afternoon, Michelle. Negotiations continue at this hour. They continued late into the night and reaching out to the sides this morning and now into the afternoon. They are still negotiating. Now, the Prime Minister making those comments just in the last hour saying it's in the best interest of both sides. However, he stopped short of saying what the government could do to step in if a deal is not reached. But Pressure is mounting not just because of the midnight deadline, but also from the business community. A joint statement this morning from the Canadian Chamber of Commerce, the Business Council of Canada, amongst others, calling on the federal government to take immediate action to ensure the continuation of rail services across Canada. And there could be a significant impact across the entire supply chain, Michelle, from coast to coast. And that could affect massive industries like the agricultural industry, big businesses to small to daily commuters, as well as the two rail companies and the Teamsters union have not yet struck a deal. And it's not just wages. They're at the heart of this issue here, not just wages that are the sticking point, but also union demands include provisions for fatigue management and improved crew scheduling. So at this time, the companies CN Rail and CPKC, Canadian Pacific Kansas City, they say they'll start locking out workers in the early hours of Thursday if they cannot reach a deal, while the union says, Michelle, it is ready to call a strike for that day. So the clock is ticking to the midnight deadline.
Well, Scott, we know with tough negotiations, the bargaining often does go down to the wire. But let's just say, in the event of a strike, what will the impact be? I mean, there'll be impact on freight, but also people.
Yeah, people is commuters in Toronto, Montreal, and Vancouver could be forced to find alternative ways to get to work. Some 30,000 commuters in those three cities. But freight is the massive deal here. Freight is the situation that could cost the Canadian economy potentially billions, as the two rail companies move roughly $1 billion worth of goods per day. So this is a massive disruption for the supply chain from coast to coast here, but also across the border as rail trade does go throughout North America. So there are concerns throughout North America that this will affect the economy as a whole, not just here in Canada, Michelle.
And let's talk about the potential for the government to get involved. You said that Trudeau stopped short, assuming they just want him to figure it out amongst themselves at this point. But, you know, governments, when there's this much on the line, it's not unusual for them to get involved.
We do know that the Labour Minister has been involved talking to all the parties yesterday in Montreal and today now in Calgary. So the Labour Minister has been meeting with the two rail companies and the union. And so there is work going on, but nothing specific that we heard from the Prime Minister, as I mentioned, stopped short of saying what the government could do if these two sides cannot reach a deal. Ultimately, the standoff, though, could badly bruise our economy, Michelle.
That's for sure. CTV's Scott Hurst live for us in the CTV National Newsroom. Have a great day.
Thanks, you too.
A man who fled to Canada to escape what he says were threats to his life over his sexual orientation is facing deportation.
A rally has gathered outside of an MP's office demanding he be allowed to stay. CTV's Beth McDonnell joins us live now to bring us more on the situation. Beth.
Michelle, Charles Mwangi is 48 years old and from Kenya. He and his supporters have gathered outside MP Judy Scro's office. Essentially, they say that Mwangi will be deported on Sunday and will face death if that happens. Mwangi and his supporters say he came here in 2019, claimed asylum, and worked on the front lines of the pandemic as a PSW, as a cook, as a cleaner. And here he is now facing this terrible situation. And so they're calling on the government to give him status. Today, here outside the office, it's been quite tense as to what will unfold. Mwangi brought an envelope with a letter and 2,000 signatures on petitions that they want to give to the office here. And at first, the office said, okay, we'll have three of you in to talk about all this. Then when they went to go actually inside, it didn't happen. And so they were very upset. They renegotiated on the phone, and three people are inside the office right now. One of them is Mwangi. So we are standing by as to see if they will accept this letter, accept these petitions, and what the office may do for Mwangi, who is very scared. Sunday is just a few days away.
You needed us. You wanted us to come.
We are looking at a pretty beautiful midpoint to the week. Temperature-wise, it's still a little fresh out there, but overall, we're holding on to a decent amount of sunshine thanks to high pressure being the dominant system. It's just not as warm as maybe some people would like, but it's cooler, and some people really enjoy that too. So we're kind of right in the middle. We're sitting around 23 this afternoon, feeling like 25, but that northwesterly wind it's a little gusty. Coming up, I'll have a full look at your long-range forecast and let you know when the heat is set to return.
It has been a wet and wild summer for the GTA, with torrential downpours causing flooding on roads as recently as this weekend. For more on all the rainfall, we're joined by warning preparedness meteorologist and Environment Canada's Jeff Colson. Thanks for joining us, Jeff. So let's just start with all the rain. How much did we get?
Well, we're looking at, we've shattered the record for the wettest summer. If we consider summer to be June, July, and August, Pearson Airport has already received 498 millimeters of precipitation for that 3-month period, shattering the old record of the summer of 2008 when we received 396.2 millimeters. But the interesting thing is a lot of that rain has fallen on just 4 days. About 65% of our summer's total fell on June 20th, July 10th, July 16th, and then, as you mentioned, just this past weekend on August 17th.
It almost seems like it's becoming common for roads to look like rivers and streams. Is this the new norm?
Well, certainly this is something that we've seen in previous summers and something we have to deal with in different parts of the province, depending on where these storms occur. Unfortunately, this year, Toronto has been the bullseye for a number of these storms, and yet areas not that far away have received considerably less precipitation. In fact, our observation site in downtown Toronto has only received 336 millimeters of rain so far this summer, considerably less than what's been received at the airport. So very localized heavy rainfall has been a concern for parts of Toronto, but this is something we tend to deal with in parts of Ontario in an average summer. Unfortunately, this summer it was Toronto's turn.
And what about preparing for this? Is there anything we can do?
Well, certainly, I think it's something that city engineers and people have been looking at for a number of years to try to look for solutions to deal with this volume of rain. But it's very difficult because we can talk about almost a month's worth of rain falling in the span of an hour, and there's really not many cities out there that have the infrastructure that could deal with that volume of rain falling in that short a period of time. But in the longer term, in terms of planning purposes, it's perhaps looking at using more in the way of semi-permeable surfaces instead of just concrete and asphalt in urban areas to help some of that rainfall seep in before it actually starts flowing into the stormwater system.
Yeah, the water's got to go somewhere. So what about, I know the summer's not even over, but what about the fall? How's that looking?
Well, in terms of the near term, at least finishing off August and getting us into September, it looks like a relatively dry spell for the Toronto area for the next 4, 5, 6 days. A welcome break, I'm sure, for the folks that have received significant rainfall recently. Overall, the forecast for September at this point looks fairly similar to what we've had so far this summer. Temperatures around seasonal values, maybe a little bit warmer than seasonal values. And in terms of precipitation, no real strong trend at this point. A number of different models indicating seasonal precipitation for September. But again, we've seen how that can change with highly localized rainfall, and that type of rainfall still quite possible in the month of September.
All right. Environment Canada's Jeff Colson, thank you.
Thanks a lot.
All right, let's talk about the forecast now. At least we can say it seems as though all the heavy rain is behind us for a little bit.
Oh, yeah, I agree with Jeff there. I mean, it's such a nice break given all that rain that we have such a long dry spell.
Yeah.
And, you know, yeah, it could be a little fresh for you, but it's going to build, the heat will build back in right in time for the weekend.
You know what? I don't take full credit for it, but I will take credit for explaining it. But it is going to be one of those weeks where we have to get there, right? It's a little cooler today. That northwesterly wind is going to add that freshness to the air. So there's that, I don't want to say cool down, but it is definitely noticeably different. And we don't have those high humidex values that really start to settle in and make it feel like we're in those dog days of summer. We are still very much in the summer season, but we are holding on to this slightly cooler weather as we head throughout the day today. Weather is brought to you by the Presler Law Firm. Injury lawyers you don't pay unless they win. And I'll take the sunshine, despite it being a little cooler, a little fresher. Lots of people outside enjoying the city. It is a bit windy, though. We're looking at that northwesterly wind holding on, sustained right around that 20-25 kilometer an hour range, but those gusts are a little closer to 40-50, so it adds that bit of a cool down. Different story, though. Northern Ontario still holding on to some heat and some heat warnings. Different story for us here in Southern Ontario, and the criteria for a heat warning is quite different depending on where you are in the province. We're nowhere near that here in the GTA, but that's all right. We're sitting at 20 degrees. Stepping into the afternoon, we're close. We're not quite seasonal, but we are getting there. We're sitting at 23 again, a lot of sunshine, but some lingering showers through areas in Eastern Ontario. That's where they're holding on to any precipitation that we're going to see throughout the day. Into this evening, again, we are close to seasonal, but not quite there. Sitting at 12, the seasonal norm is 15, but we're looking at more single-digit lows as we kind of get through our evening. The bulk of that rain, that trough we had yesterday, continues to push its way out, and we're just holding on to those few lingering showers in Eastern Ontario. But for the GTA, the downtown core, really everywhere around Pearson, we're holding on to just tons of sunshine and just a few light clouds as we head throughout the day. We're not looking at much in the way of anything extreme, and the cool down isn't anything out of the ordinary, but we've just had such a warm summer so far that it feels quite cool in comparison. As we head through Thursday, more of the same. I promise the forecast radar picture works. There's just not much going on. And then as we head in towards our Friday, that's when the warm-up starts to begin. We're climbing back to that seasonal range, and then we get above as we head throughout the weekend. So if you were not loving the rain we saw last weekend, a different story as we head in towards this one. Temperature-wise, again, we're not quite there. We're in that normal range, but that northwesterly wind, that really breezy wind, is going to continue to help us stay below where we should be. That continues into our Thursday to an extent, although that daytime high is pretty seasonal. It's as we head in towards our Friday, Saturday, Sunday that we get back to that little bit of heat. Those humidex values start to return, and we're looking at a more southerly wind as we head in towards the end of the week and the weekend, and that will do a lot to continue to warm things up. So if you have sports outside in the evening, it's probably nicer that it's not so hot out there. Those 20-degree nights, we're getting pretty warm. As we head in towards the end of the week, we're sitting in a very seasonal range. If you're heading out to the CNE, anything like that, it'll be quite nice. And then we start to see the heat return as we head in towards next week. Michelle, I'll send things back to you.
Thank you, Jess. If you own a vehicle, you probably used an automatic car wash before, and chances are you didn't have any issues at all.
But occasionally, cars are damaged during the car wash process, and if it happens, you might be surprised who's responsible for the repairs. CTV's Pat Foran has this consumer alert.
At this Esso station in Scarborough, there is a Circle K automatic car wash. In June of this year, Richard Prague was using the car wash when all of a sudden it came to a complete stop.
I used the ultimate car wash at soft cloth. It jammed up against my fender.
Prague says when he left the car wash, he inspected his SUV and found a large dent on the passenger side of his 2022 Honda Pilot.
Their machine malfunctioned, bumped up against my front fender, and put a big dent.
Prague told the car wash manager what happened. Repairing the dent will cost almost $3,000.
We don't have access to the video surveillance, so unless we had a dash cam or something, we have no proof.
Circle K agreed to an investigation, but the company said there was no proof the dent was caused by the car wash and the case was closed. A spokesperson also told CTV News, "We have received the complaint about this issue. Following a thorough review by our operations team, we found no evidence of responsibility on our part." A month after the incident, there is still a sign at the car wash that says currently the ultimate wash is unavailable. That's the wash option Prague used. You are taking a bit of a risk anytime you use an automatic car wash, according to Circle K's website. Circle K shall not be liable for any damage or injury whatsoever caused by the car wash, including damage caused to you, the vehicle, your property, or to any person in your vehicle. The Insurance Bureau of Canada says damage caused by a car wash could be covered by the car wash's liability policy, but if they won't pay, the owner may have to go through their own insurance. The Pragues say if they make a claim, they'll have to pay a $1,000 deductible.
Quite an expensive cost for us when it's not even our fault.
Pat Foran, CTV News.
Still ahead, a new study is revealing some jarring numbers about the mental health challenges faced by teens across the province. The details when we come back. The World Health Organization says Mpox is not the new COVID. Despite declaring it a global emergency, officials say they are familiar with the virus and how to control it.
But there are still questions surrounding the new variant and vaccinations to try and stop the spread. CTV's Heather Wright reports.
Countries hit hardest by the Mpox outbreak in Africa could start vaccinations within days, the continent's top health agency says. As the World Health Organization stresses, This is not a repeat of early 2020.
Mpox is not the new COVID.
Mpox is a viral infection typically spread through skin-to-skin contact. It causes lesions and flu-like symptoms, and while usually mild, can result in death. While the virus has been circulating in Africa for decades, a new, more transmissible version has emerged this year.
So the virus has changed in ways which are worrying. Viruses are unpredictable, so you want to try and control spread wherever possible. Viruses mutate through that mechanism of uncontrolled spread.
The majority of this year's cases are in the Democratic Republic of Congo. Half of them have been in children, who make up the majority of the deaths. In Canada, Mpox cases are also on the rise, though to a much smaller degree. The new variant has not been reported here, and officials stress there are strong public health measures in place.
We will probably identify additional cases in multiple global regions. I think the big piece is going to be whether or not we see any ongoing human-to-human transmission within the community.
In Canada, the virus is primarily transmitted between men who have sex with men and sex workers, with vaccine eligibility largely limited to those groups. In Africa, officials say 10 million vaccines are needed to meet demand. Canada has pledged $1 million to help stem the spread of Mpox in Africa. And while vaccines are not part of that commitment, Ottawa has not ruled out donating them in the future. Heather Wright, CTV News.
If you're planning to head to the waterfront for a swim, you may want to be careful which beach you head to. Toronto Public Health monitors the levels of E. coli bacteria at the city's supervised beaches. And in their latest update this morning, they advise caution if swimming at Marie Curtis Park Beach, Sunnyside Beach, and Ward's Island Beach. Those warnings are based on water samples collected yesterday. All of the city's other blue flag beaches are considered safe to swim.
More than half of middle and high school students across the province say they're experiencing increasing levels of psychological distress. The CAMH survey of more than 10,000 students shows 19% engaged in self-harm and 18% had serious thoughts of suicide in the past year. The study's lead researcher says the data shows students are struggling and more resources are needed to help them. Despite needing mental health support, a third of students said they never sought assistance.
There were many reports of challenges that students were experiencing during the pandemic. And we're seeing that these elevated levels are still continuing now and are still there. So again, some of the challenges that came out of the pandemic are continuing. Adolescence has changed, the experiences of students changing, and all of these factors are adding up and making it even more important for us to really think about what we need to do to enhance students' mental health.
There was also some positive news, with the survey noting a significant decline in drug and alcohol use among youth over the years.
A new study suggests there may be a link between regularly eating processed meats and red meat and a heightened risk of type 2 diabetes. The study's author says it is a comprehensive analysis and the most to date showing a link. Type 2 diabetes is a chronic condition that occurs when blood sugar is regularly too high. Experts suggest eating meat less often or in smaller portions and striving for a diet in vegetables, fruits, nuts, and beans, along with regular exercise.
Get Toronto's top stories, breaking news alerts, and watch live. Download the CTV News app.
Ford is pulling back from electric vehicles again.
Andrew Bell, B&M Bloomberg, has the latest in business.
Hello there. Here are your business headlines. Automaker Ford is scrapping plans for a fully electric sport utility vehicle, and it's also further postponing a next-generation electric pickup. Ford has responded to a slowdown in electric vehicle demand growth by cranking up output of gas-electric hybrids instead. The auto giant said last month it would delay producing electric SUVs at its plant in Oakville, Ontario, and would instead use the facility to begin building F-Series Super Duty trucks. Inflation has consumers demanding bargains, and that's good for U.S. discount retailer TJX, parent of Winners, HomeSense, and Marshalls in Canada. The company's shares rose 6% to a record high after second quarter results beat expectations, and the cut-price merchandiser raised its full-year forecast. TJX Canada sales grew 2% to just over $1.2 billion US. The company's stock has climbed almost 30% this year. And finally, Disney has pulled back from a legal defense that critics said was just cynical exploitation of small print. The case is a wrongful death suit over a woman who died of an allergic food reaction on Disney park property. Company lawyers had said the woman's husband signed away his right to a public trial when he agreed to online terms of service while signing up for Disney Plus, the streaming service. But the company has now dropped that maneuver and it will no longer demand arbitration instead of a trial. That's the latest in business. I'm Andrew Bell of BNN Bloomberg.
A new survey shows Canadians under 30 who are trying to buy their first home are prioritizing those plans over other common life goals and milestones. RBC's Houseful shared the findings of an online survey of more than 1,000 adults. 40% of first-time homebuyers under 30 said it was a critical part of their 5-year plan, outranking marriage, travel, and buying a car. The authors say younger adults are very aware of housing affordability challenges and are likely motivated by trying to secure a financially stable future as soon as possible. 71% of prospective homebuyers under 30 said they feel home ownership will be an important part of their retirement plan.
With Canada's inflation rate dropping to its lowest level in 40 months, it sets the stage for another interest rate cut next month. But as CTV's Annie Bergeron-Oliver reports, many Canadians are still feeling the financial pinch.
Across the board, inflation is coming down, putting slightly less pressure on cash-strapped consumers.
Less goods and services that consumers are purchasing these days are facing high inflation, and that's a really good sign for Canadian households.
Last month, inflation was down to 2.5%, the lowest since March 2021. The drop driven by a 2.8% annual decline in the cost of travel tours and a 1.4% drop in the cost of passenger vehicles.
Prices are stabilizing and starting to come down a touch. So really, I think we're still seeing some of the pandemic effects coming through. But overall, I mean, generally still on the services side, very positive.
But the sticker price of many goods isn't actually dropping. Rent, food prices, and shelter costs are still increasing, just at a slower rate than before.
Either it's up a little bit or it's stabilized, but I haven't seen not too much go down.
Like many Canadians, Tasso Vasilis hasn't seen any relief despite inflation coming down. What he has seen is regular customers with less disposable income choosing to come in less often.
We're high volume, and where we had people coming in maybe 3-4 times a week to the establishment, they come in maybe 1 or 2.
But economists say these are all signs the economy is slowing, and that is likely to mean more interest rate cuts from the Bank of Canada.
For now, it's encouraging evidence. It keeps the Bank of Canada on track with the conviction necessary to cut again by a quarter point in September. We have at least 1 or 2 more cuts coming thereafter toward the end of this year.
The key interest rate currently sits at 4.5%. The Bank of Canada will make its next decision on September 4th, and economists predict a 25 basis point cut. Annie Bergeron-Oliver, CTV News, Ottawa.
Have you started your back-to-school shopping? From backpacks to books, the list of must-have items is long and can be expensive.
But there are ways to get your kids ready for class without breaking the bank. CTV's John Musselman reports.
Mississauga mother Roman Gill has 3 kids in primary school. She expects to spend a couple of $100s at this local Walmart getting her kids all the things they need for a return to the classroom. Still, she tries to be reasonable with her spending.
You definitely do. You know, you can't really splurge as much with inflation. You have to kind of be mindful this time.
And Gill is not alone. Retailers know consumers are watching their dollars. At this Staples store in Scarborough, parents and students can experience one-stop shopping, school supplies for all different ages, and the latest technology, including laptops, iPads, and cell phones.
We're trying to make it easy for people to determine not only their needs, but obviously shouting out a basket that's going to drive some value for customers.
Retail experts say parents can save a few dollars by doing an inventory on what the kids have right now.
So what do you have from last year and what can we reuse that, you know, something's still good. We can reuse a backpack or a lunch bag or something like that. We don't have to completely go out and buy everything new.
Shopping around is also a good idea. Cassidy recommends an app called the Flip app that will compare prices for you.
So you can search for a backpack or a certain school supply, and it will pull up all of the grocery store flyers in your local area, and it will compare those prices for you.
I think value is certainly top of mind for Canadians.
Back in Mississauga, Gil's shopping cart was filling up fast. Her kids will be back in school in just 2 weeks. John Musselman, CTV News in Mississauga.
The Blue Jays continue their series with the Cincinnati Reds last night.
One against Barger, but he lives on the margins, and Springer launches to left. His 15th of the year.
George Springer swung a big bat for the Jays. He had 2 homers on the night as Toronto picked up a 10-3 win over Cincinnati. The teams will wrap up their series tonight. First pitch is just after 7.
Bennifer is officially no more. Jennifer Lopez has filed for divorce from Ben Affleck. According to an entry on the Los Angeles Superior Court docket, Lopez filed to end their 2-year marriage on Tuesday. The breakup comes after reports the two have been living separately. They also sold their Beverly Hills home, and Lopez canceled her summer tour to spend time with her family. Their divorce marks yet another turn in a love story between the two superstars that has played out in the spotlight for decades. Both married others and had families before reuniting in 2021.
The official trailer is out for one of the most highly anticipated films appearing at the Toronto International Film Festival this year.
Imagine today's society as a branch of civilization about to reach a dead end.
Adam Driver stars in Megalopolis, a project that's been in the works for some time from Oscar winner Francis Ford Coppola. The film is billed as a Roman epic set in an imagined modern America, fighting over the future of humanity. The film's North American debut takes place at TIFF, which runs from September 5th through the 15th.
Taylor Swift is out with a new music video, sharing new perspectives on her sold-out Eras World Tour.
I was grinning like I'm winning, I was hitting my marks, 'cause I can do it with a broken heart.
This is the video for I Can Do It With a Broken Heart. It's from Swift's album released earlier this year, The Tortured Poets Department. The video shows Swift's and her team's rehearsal process for the Eras tour and behind-the-scenes moments from several live shows as well. Swift's next concerts will be right here in Toronto with the first of 6 on November 14th.
Coming up, it may still be summer, but some can't wait for a spooky season to start already, preparing for Halloween. More on that after the break. Halloween is still more than 2 months away, but some people have already started preparing.
As CTV's Stephanie Davis explains, there are a few reasons for the early spooky shoppers.
Whether you're looking to be a princess, Super Mario, or you're hoping to turn your cat into a bat, Halloween shops are encouraging customers to shop sooner than later.
The earlier you come, the more choices you have.
At Kitchener's Kind of Magic, it's been an early start to spooky season.
This year, more than other years, we are starting to see people come in earlier, which we love because it makes us be able to help them the best.
The main reason they're seeing shoppers is money. Customers either trying to find a deal or spread out their spending.
Obviously, financially, people have been it's becoming harder and harder for people. And, you know, you want to be involved, you want to get costumes and have fun at Halloween, but you also have to choose, you know, buy a full costume and go all out or pay rent.
Another reason for early Halloween shopping is this.
Summer what? Summerween!
A TikTok trend called Summerween.
There's a bit of a trend where people have started to decorate in the summer for Halloween and have Halloween parties. And this is something that's sort of caught on with a lot of youngsters. So you're starting to see some sales because of that.
In the U.S., retail analyst Bruce Winder says some stores start their Halloween sales as early as March or April. That's not quite the case in Canada, but he says there's definitely been a change recently.
You see the holiday is starting to move forward. People are starting to get involved in the holiday earlier. And retailers love that because they need the off-season sales.
On this side of our store, which is all of our costumes.
And while some search for the perfect costume online, Kind of Magic encourages people to shop local for a little less trick and more treat this Halloween.
If you come in and say, I have a budget of $20 and I want to be a devil, we will find a way to make you a devil for the budget of $20.
Stephanie Davis, CTV News, Kitchener.
There's no rush, though. The city is out with its list of fall recreation programs. Options among the 16,000 registered courses include swimming lessons, fitness classes, art workshops, and cooking classes. The city says there are approximately 157,000 spaces this year. Registration opens on September 10th, with programming set to begin on September 28th. You can sign up online, over the phone, or in person.
All right, but we still have summer programs going on, and kids, I'm sure, today out with camp and that kind of thing. At least it's dry.
I know, maybe a little bit easier to swim today because it is a tad bit warmer than it was yesterday.
We're getting there. I'm still feeling some type of way about the Halloween stuff. I love Halloween, but I was like, y'all, it is August. But the good news is we are holding on to warmer weather heading into the weekend. So I know this kind of taste of cooler weather has really sparked some people to start thinking in that fall type of way, but I promise you we're still very much in the summer season. Temperature-wise, it is still a little fresh, that northwesterly wind adding a bite to the air, but the good news is we warm up as we head into the afternoon, and if you're heading out to the Jays game tonight, it's not too bad. And as we step into the weekend, look, it's getting warm, and I will take it as we step into the end of August.
All right, thank you, Jess. And that is CTV News at noon. Remember, you can get Toronto's breaking news all day long on CP24 and at our website, ctvnewstoronto.ca.
For Jessica Smith and all of us here, have a pleasant afternoon. I'm Michelle Dubé.
And I'm Nathan Dowd. Be sure to join us later for CTV News at 5 and 6. Have a great day.